The emergency alarms shrieked through the corridors of the Galactic Council's primary intelligence facility on Nexus Prime, causing hundreds of alien officials to abandon their routine tasks and rush toward the crisis center. Admiral Kethvar of the Andromedan Fleet had never heard the code black alert sound in his 40 years of service, and the deep purple of his skin grew darker with worry as he pushed through the crowd of panicking diplomats and military personnel. Inside the central command chamber, massive holographic displays showed star charts, energy readings, and most disturbing of all, grainy images of something that shouldn't exist. Chief Intelligence Officer Zarlen, a tall crystalline whose body shimmered with nervous energy, gestured frantically at the main screen where a dark angular shape rotated slowly in three-dimensional space. "Explain this to me again," Admiral Kethvar demanded, his forearms crossed as he studied the impossible readings. "You're telling me our most advanced deep space monitoring stations detected a ship that our sensors can barely see?" Zarlene's crystalline form flickered between colors, a clear sign of extreme agitation. "Sir, the Zephyrian station picked up quantum disturbances in Sector 7740. When they investigated, they found this vessel using their experimental quantum detection array. Every other scanner reads empty space, but this thing is definitely there. It's massive, nearly 3 kilometers long." The room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of computer systems processing the unthinkable data. Admiral Kethvar moved closer to the holographic display, his experienced military mind trying to comprehend what he was seeing. The ship's design was unlike anything in the current galactic database. Sharp predatory lines formed a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon ports lined its surface in configurations that suggested devastating firepower, and strange geometric patterns covered its armor plating. "Have we identified the builders?" he asked, though a growing dread in his stomach suggested he already knew the answer. Dr. Nexium, the Council's chief xenoarchaeologist, stepped forward with a datapad clutched in his tentacles. His normally calm Aquarian features showed obvious fear as he spoke. "Admiral, we've run the hull markings through every database in the galactic network. The symbols match human writing, specifically military designation codes from their old Earth Defense Force." The admission hit the room like a plasma bomb. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, and several junior officers actually stepped backward as if the holographic image might suddenly attack them. Admiral Kethvar felt his secondary heart skip a beat as the implications crashed over him. Humanity had been the galaxy's most feared species for good reason. When they first achieved faster-than-light travel and encountered other civilizations, most aliens had assumed the humans would be primitive, easily conquered beings like so many other species. That assumption had cost millions of lives and reshaped the political landscape of known space forever. Humans didn't just fight wars, they revolutionized them. While other species had evolved beyond their aggressive instincts over millions of years, humans had channeled their natural violence into military science that bordered on artistic mastery. Their ships were faster, their weapons deadlier, and their tactics so unpredictable that even the most advanced AI systems couldn't anticipate human military movements. "Show me the historical records," Kethvar ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The main display shifted to show archive footage from the human-Saurian conflict 60 years ago. Despite having superior numbers and more advanced technology, the proud Saurian Empire had been completely destroyed within 6 months of declaring war on humanity. The recordings showed human warships appearing seemingly out of nowhere, striking with surgical precision and vanishing before enemy reinforcements could respond. But the most terrifying aspect of human warfare wasn't their technology or tactics. It was their absolute refusal to surrender. Other species fought for territory, resources, or political advantage. Humans fought for survival, and they would sacrifice anything, including their own lives, to ensure their enemies could never threaten them again. "Sir," came a nervous voice from the communications station. "We're receiving priority transmissions from governments across the galaxy. Word is spreading about the discovery. The Centaurian Republic has raised their fleet to full alert status. The Vegan Trade Union is requesting emergency protection protocols. Even the Mechanical Collective is showing signs of concern." Admiral Kethvar wasn't surprised. After humanity's homeworld had been destroyed 50 years ago by a rogue asteroid that many suspected was actually an alien weapon, most of the galaxy had assumed that the human threat was finally eliminated. The few scattered human colonies that remained had either been absorbed by other civilizations or had simply disappeared into the unknown regions of space. The galaxy had enjoyed 50 years of relative peace without humanity's destabilizing presence. Trade flourished, conflicts remained small and manageable, and the nightmare scenarios that human military strategists had made possible seemed safely buried in the past. "What's the ship's current trajectory?" Kethvar asked. dreading the answer. Chief Navigator Yoltep manipulated the star chart with her elongated fingers, tracing a glowing line through space. It's moving toward the core systems, Admiral. Current speed suggests it will reach the outer colonies within 14 standard days if it maintains course. Could it be a derelict? Some kind of automated vessel still following old programming? Dr. Nexim consulted his research files before responding. Unlikely, sir. Our long-range sensors are detecting minimal but consistent energy fluctuations consistent with active life support systems. Something is alive on that ship, and it's controlling its movement with purpose. The implication sent chills through everyone present. If humans had somehow survived and were returning to civilized space, they would find a galaxy that had grown soft during their absence. Military technologies had stagnated without the constant pressure of human innovation driving advancement. Fleet compositions had shifted toward exploration and trade protection rather than serious warfare. Have we attempted communication? Kethvar asked. Multiple attempts using all known human languages and protocols, replied the communications officer. No response on any frequency. The ship isn't acknowledging our transmissions at all. Admiral Kethvar studied the mysterious vessel rotating slowly on the display screen. Something about its design seemed familiar, yet completely alien at the same time. Human ships had always been functional rather than aesthetically pleasing, but this vessel took that philosophy to an extreme that suggested something had fundamentally changed about human shipbuilding. I want all available intelligence assets focused on this situation, he ordered. Contact every retired human specialist still in our databases. Dig up every piece of historical data about human military capabilities, and for the love of the Seven Moons, find out what happened to the human survivors after their homeworld was destroyed. As teams of analysts began their frantic research, Admiral Kethvar couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. If this truly was a human warship, then its appearance in their space wasn't an accident or a coincidence. Humans never did anything without a plan, and their plans usually involved making their enemies regret ever crossing them. The holographic display continued showing the phantom ship drifting through space with the patience of a predator. Its dark hull seemed to absorb not just light, but hope itself. And Admiral Kethvar found himself wondering if the 50 years of peace the galaxy had enjoyed was about to end in the most violent way possible. Deep in his core, where his species kept their most primitive instincts, Admiral Kethvar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, the primal fear that comes from knowing you're being hunted by something far more dangerous than yourself. And somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity's deadliest weapon was coming home. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UAS Retribution, watching through the main view screen as alien space unfolded before them after 50 years in the void between galaxies. Her weathered hands gripped the command rail with the strength of someone who had seen too much death and carried too many burdens, while her gray eyes reflected the cold determination that had kept her crew alive through 5 decades of isolation. The bridge around her hummed with quiet efficiency as her officers worked at stations that bore no resemblance to the technology other species used. Human engineering had evolved far beyond what the galaxy remembered, driven by necessity and the bitter knowledge that they could trust no one but themselves. Every surface was matte black, designed to absorb sensor sweeps and remain invisible to detection systems. Every component had been crafted for one purpose: survival in a universe that wanted humanity dead. "Tactical status, Commander Reeves," Sarah ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded warships since before most of her crew was born. Marcus Reeves, her tactical officer, looked up from his console where holographic displays showed weapon systems that the galaxy had never seen before. "All stealth systems operating at maximum efficiency, Commander. We're completely invisible to their sensors, except for the quantum wake we're deliberately leaving behind. Phantom drive is ready for emergency jump if needed. Weapon systems are armed but concealed." Sarah nodded with satisfaction. The Retribution represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, developed during their long exile in the space between galaxies. While the rest of the universe had grown complacent during humanity's absence, human survivors had spent every day preparing for their eventual return. They had studied their enemies, analyzed their weaknesses, and created weapons that would ensure such betrayal could never happen again. Communications. Any response to our presence? Lieutenant Kim Park, barely 30 years old but trained from childhood in the art of interspecies warfare, monitored dozens of alien communication channels. "Massive panic across all frequencies, Commander. The Galactic Council has raised alert levels to maximum. Fleet movements indicate they're mobilizing everything they have, but their formations show they have no idea what they're dealing with." Sarah allowed herself a cold smile. After 50 years of believing humanity was extinct, the galaxy's military forces had become soft and predictable. Their tactics focused on territorial disputes and trade protection rather than the total warfare that humans had mastered through bitter necessity. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, the ship's science officer and historian, approached with a data tablet containing intelligence they had gathered during their approach. "Commander, I've been analyzing their technology broadcasts. Their military capabilities have actually degraded since we left. No major innovations in ship design, weapon systems, or defensive technologies. They've been coasting on peace dividends while we've been advancing." The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. The same species that had conspired to destroy humanity's homeworld, claiming humans were too dangerous to exist alongside civilized races, had let their own defenses crumble through complacency. They had created the very monster they feared by forcing humanity to evolve in isolation. "Engineering status," Sarah called to the rear of the bridge. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom from the ship's heart, where fusion reactors provided power that dwarfed anything the galaxy currently used. "All systems operating within normal parameters, Commander. Phantom drive is holding steady at 98% efficiency. We can maintain stealth indefinitely or go to full combat power with 30 seconds notice." The Phantom drive represented humanity's greatest achievement during their exile. By manipulating quantum foam at the subatomic level, human ships could exist in a state of partial phase shift, making them nearly impossible to detect while allowing them to move at speeds that traditional physics said were impossible. It was technology that had taken 40 years to perfect and had cost thousands of human lives in testing accidents. "Commander," came another voice from the sensor station, "I'm detecting increased military activity around Nexus Prime. Looks like a full fleet mobilization. They're scared." Sarah studied the tactical display showing alien fleet movements across 3-star systems. Their formations were defensive, clustered around population centers and trade routes. They were preparing to protect what they valued most, rather than actively hunting the human ship. It was exactly the kind of predictable thinking that would make them vulnerable. "Time to intercept the nearest alien fleet?" she asked. 18 hours at current speed," Marcus replied. "Though I should note, Commander, that fleet consists of over 200 vessels, including 3 super dreadnoughts. Even with our technological advantages, those are significant numbers." Sarah had fought against worse odds during humanity's desperate evacuation from their dying homeworld. She remembered watching alien fleets arrive to finish off the human refugees, only to discover that humans weren't as helpless as they had assumed. The lessons learned in those final battles had shaped everything about human military doctrine since. "Show me the crew roster," Sarah ordered. The main screen shifted to display the names and faces of the 800 humans aboard the Retribution. Each face told a story of loss and determination. These were the children and grandchildren of the survivors who had escaped Earth's destruction, raised from birth with the knowledge that they would one day return to reclaim humanity's place in the galaxy. They had trained for this mission their entire lives. Dr. Morgan stepped closer to Sarah's command station. "Commander, I've been thinking about our strategy. We could simply announce ourselves and demand recognition of human territorial claims. With our technological advantages, they might negotiate rather than fight." Sarah turned to face the younger woman, her expression showing the weariness of someone who had learned hard truths about the nature of interspecies politics. "Doctor, 50 years ago, these same aliens convinced the galaxy that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. They destroyed our homeworld and hunted our survivors across the stars. Do you really think they'll welcome us back with open arms?" The bridge crew had grown quiet, listening to their commander's words. Most of them had been born during the long exile and had only heard stories about humanity's original home, but they all understood the hatred that drove their mission. "Our presence here isn't a request for recognition," Sarah continued. "It's a demonstration of consequences. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity survived, adapted, and remembers exactly who tried to exterminate us." On the main view screen, another alien fleet was moving into position near a major trade hub. Their ships moved in formation patterns that human tactical computers had already analyzed and found wanting. Predictable acceleration curves, standard communication protocols, and weapon configurations that hadn't changed in 50 years. "Commander," Lieutenant Park said from the communication station, "I'm intercepting messages between alien governments. They're trying to coordinate a response, but there's significant disagreement about whether to attempt diplomacy or prepare for war. Some species are arguing we might be refugees seeking peaceful resettlement." Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Refugees don't travel in stealth warships, Lieutenant. They know exactly what we are." The tactical display updated to show new fleet movements as alien forces continued their mobilization efforts. Sarah studied the patterns, noting the defensive postures and communication delays that suggested their command structure was struggling with the unexpected crisis. Commander Reeves, begin preparations for our first demonstration. I want a target that will send a clear message without causing massive casualties. Something that shows our capabilities while leaving the door open for dialogue. Marcus consulted his tactical systems before responding. There's an automated defense platform in the outer system, heavily shielded but unmanned. Taking it out would demonstrate our offensive capabilities while minimizing political complications. Sarah considered the option. The defense platform would be a perfect first move. Challenging enough to prove human weapons had evolved beyond galactic comprehension, but surgical enough to avoid triggering the kind of total war that humanity wasn't quite ready to fight against the entire galaxy. Very well. Plot an intercept course and prepare for combat operations. But remember, people, this isn't about destruction. This is about making sure the galaxy never forgets that humanity survived their betrayal and came back stronger. As the Retribution changed course toward its first target, Sarah Chen looked out at the alien stars that had once seemed so welcoming to human explorers. Now they were enemy territory, populated by species that had proven they could not be trusted. But humanity had learned from that betrayal, and the lessons they had learned would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Phantom ship moved through space like a predator stalking its prey, and somewhere in the depths of alien space, the first demonstration of humanity's new capabilities was about to begin. The automated defense platform Sentinel 7 hung in the void like a massive metal flower, its sensor arrays and weapon systems extending in all directions from a central hub that bristled with defensive shields and armor plating. For 30 years, it had monitored the approaches to the Centaurian system without detecting so much as a suspicious asteroid, its AI systems running routine scans while its weapons remained dormant. Admiral Kethvar watched the platform's status displays from the war room on Nexus Prime, surrounded by holographic tactical screens showing fleet positions across 3 star systems. Every available ship in the sector had been mobilized, creating defensive formations that should have been able to stop any conceivable threat. Yet the Phantom human vessel remained completely undetected by every sensor except the experimental quantum arrays that could barely track its position. Platform Sentinel 7 reports all systems normal, announced the communications officer. AI confirms no anomalous readings in local space. Weapons systems are armed and ready for automated defensive protocols. Dr. Nexim studied readouts from the platform's sophisticated sensor suite, his Aquarian features showing the strain of sleepless analysis. Admiral, that platform has detection capabilities that surpass most capital ships. If something were approaching, we would know about it hours in advance. But Admiral Kethvar had spent too many years studying human military capabilities to trust in conventional wisdom. The recordings from the Human-Saurian War showed human ships appearing inside enemy formations without any prior warning, as if they could simply materialize wherever they chose. If humans had spent 50 years improving their stealth technology, there was no telling what they might be capable of now. Distance from the platform to the nearest human ship? He asked, though he suspected the answer would be meaningless. Based on the quantum wake signature, approximately 18 light minutes in closing. However, sir, at that distance and with their apparent stealth capabilities, they couldn't possibly target the platform with any accuracy. On board the UES Retribution, Commander Sarah Chen studied the tactical display showing the massive alien defense platform rotating slowly in the distance. Her ship remained invisible to every scanner the platform possessed, moving through space like a ghost while her weapons officers calculated firing solutions with precision that would have seemed magical to the engineers who built humanity's first starships. Target analysis complete, reported Commander Reeves from the tactical station. Platform shows standard Centaurian defensive architecture. Primary shields are charged particle barriers with electromagnetic backup systems. Main weapons consist of plasma cannons and kinetic projectile arrays. Estimated defensive capability is rated for destroyer-class assault vessels. Sarah nodded as she reviewed the tactical data. The defense platform was a formidable obstacle by the standards of 50 years ago, but human weapons technology had evolved far beyond what the galaxy remembered. During their exile, human engineers had been forced to develop new approaches to warfare, driven by the knowledge that they might one day face the combined fleets of every species that had betrayed them. Weapons status, she ordered. Phantom Lance, charging to full power, came the reply from the weapons control station. Target lock established through quantum resonance tracking. We can fire at will, Commander. The Phantom Lance represented a revolution in directed energy weapons, using principles of quantum mechanics that human scientists had discovered during their long exile. Rather than simply firing energy at a target, the weapon created a direct quantum entanglement between the firing ship and the target, allowing for instantaneous energy transfer across any distance while bypassing all conventional defensive systems. "Dr. Morgan, are you recording everything for the historical archive?" Morgan looked up from her station, where multiple cameras and sensor arrays were capturing every detail of humanity's return to galactic politics. "Complete documentation, Commander. This moment will be studied for generations to come." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "Adam, the next few minutes would determine whether humanity's return would be met with fear, respect, or open warfare. The demonstration needed to be precise, devastating enough to command attention, but controlled enough to leave room for negotiation. "Fire when ready," she commanded. The Phantom Lance activated with no visible discharge, no energy beam crossing space, and no warning of any kind. On the defense platform, emergency alarm suddenly screamed as quantum fire materialized inside the station's shields, bypassing every defensive system as if they didn't exist. The exotic energy surge overloaded primary power systems while simultaneously destabilizing the platform's structural integrity at the molecular level. In the war room on Nexus Prime, Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as Sentinel-7 status displays went from green to red in less than 3 seconds. The platform's massive structure began to collapse as internal systems failed in cascade failures that their engineers had thought impossible. "What happened?" he demanded, his forearms gesturing frantically at the tactical displays. The platform's shields were at maximum power. There was no energy discharge detected anywhere in the system. The communications officer's voice cracked with disbelief as he reported the impossible. "Sir, Platform Sentinel-7 it's disintegrating. Internal structure failure across all sections. No external impacts detected. No weapon signatures on any sensor array. The platform is just falling apart." Dr. Nexium stared at the sensor readouts with the expression of someone watching the laws of physics being casually violated. "This is impossible. You can't destroy a fortified platform without some kind of energy transfer. There has to be a weapon signature somewhere." But the recordings showed only empty space around the dying platform, while the mysterious human ship remained exactly where their quantum detectors had last placed it, apparently unchanged and certainly too distant to have caused the destruction through any known technology. On the Retribution, Commander Sarah Chen watched as the alien defense platform tore itself apart under the influence of human technology that existed decades beyond anything the galaxy had seen. The demonstration was proceeding exactly as planned, shocking enough to prove humanity's capabilities had evolved beyond alien comprehension, but precise enough to avoid massive casualties. "Damage assessment," she requested. "Platform is breaking apart according to predicted models," Commander Reeves reported. "Estimated total destruction in 6 minutes. No casualties detected. The platform was fully automated as intelligence suggested." Phantom Lance performed flawlessly. Sarah felt a satisfaction that was both professional and deeply personal. For 50 years, humanity had been forced to hide in the darkness between galaxies, developing new technologies while nursing the bitter knowledge that their homeworld had been destroyed by the very species who now scrambled to understand what was happening to their defenses. "Communications, begin broadcasting on all alien frequencies. It's time to announce ourselves." Lieutenant Park activated the ship's communication systems using quantum entanglement principles to ensure their signal would be impossible to jam or trace. The message that had been prepared for 50 years began broadcasting across alien space, carrying words that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Retribution, representing the survivors of humanity. For 50 years we have watched from the void as your species celebrated our supposed extinction. You destroyed our homeworld, hunted our refugees, and declared us too dangerous to exist alongside your civilized races." The message continued broadcasting while alien communication networks carried the words to every government in the galaxy. "Today's demonstration shows that humanity survived your betrayal and adapted to it. We have returned not as refugees seeking charity, but as a power that remembers exactly who tried to exterminate us and why." In war rooms and government chambers across dozens of star systems, alien leaders listened to the human announcement with growing horror. The casual destruction of Platform Sentinel-7 had proven that human military technology now existed on a level that made their best defenses meaningless. "We do not seek conquest or revenge," the broadcast continued, "but we will not tolerate further attempts at genocide. Humanity claims the right to exist in this galaxy, and we possess the means to enforce that claim. Any species that threatens human survival will discover that we have learned to be far more dangerous than you ever imagined." Admiral Kethvar listened to the human message while studying tactical displays that showed the complete destruction of one of their most advanced defensive installations. The implications were staggering. If humans could casually destroy a heavily shielded platform from impossible range using undetectable weapons, what could they do to entire fleets? "Sir," came a nervous voice from the communications station, "we're receiving priority messages from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate consultation on response options. Some governments are suggesting immediate surrender negotiations, while others are calling for total mobilization." The Admiral's secondary hearts were beating so rapidly he could barely think clearly. Everything he thought he knew about military capabilities had been rendered obsolete in the space of 6 minutes. If this was what one human ship could accomplish, what would happen when the rest of their fleet revealed itself? On the Retribution, Commander Sarah Chen ended the broadcast and turned to her crew. "Phase 1 complete. We've announced our presence and demonstrated our capabilities. Now we wait and see how they respond." Dr. Morgan was reviewing the recordings of the platform's destruction with obvious fascination. "Commander, the precision of that strike was remarkable. We completely bypassed their shields and targeting systems while causing exactly the amount of damage needed to prove our point without triggering immediate warfare." Sarah nodded with grim satisfaction. "That's what 50 years of preparation will accomplish, Doctor. We've had half a century to study their weaknesses and develop countermeasures. The galaxy is about to learn that attempting genocide against humanity was the worst mistake they ever made." The Phantom ship continued its course through alien space, now no longer hiding its presence, but making no aggressive moves beyond the surgical demonstration they had just completed. Behind them, Platform Sentinel 7 finished its collapse into scrap metal and debris, leaving behind a clear message that humanity had returned to the galaxy with capabilities that made their previous reputation seem quaint by comparison. The Emergency Assembly of the Galactic Council convened in chaos, with representatives from 47 species arguing simultaneously in languages that their translation systems struggled to process. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, designed to showcase the unity and civilization of advanced galactic society, now echoed with voices raised in fear, anger, and desperate confusion. Ambassador Velter of the Centaurian Republic stood at the central podium, his normally elegant blue features distorted by rage as he gestured toward the holographic display showing the wreckage of Platform Sentinel. 7. The humans have committed an act of war against a peaceful defense installation. Their message proves they intend to terrorize the galaxy into submission. From across the chamber, High Counselor Zix of the Mechanical Collective responded with mechanical precision. "Incorrect assessment, Veltar. Human communication explicitly stated non-aggressive intentions while demonstrating superior defensive capabilities." Logical conclusion: negotiation preferable to conflict with technologically superior opponent. The debate raged for hours while military advisors updated tactical assessments that grew more disturbing with each revision. Every defense expert who analyzed the destruction of Sentinel 7 reached the same impossible conclusion. The humans had used a weapon system that bypassed known physics while operating from a range that should have made accurate targeting impossible. Admiral Kethvar watched the proceedings from the military observer section, his forearms crossed while he studied intelligence reports that painted an increasingly terrifying picture of humanity's capabilities. The single human ship continued its course through Centaurian space, moving with the confidence of a predator that knew it was untouchable. "Admiral," whispered his aide, approaching with the latest analysis from their best tactical computers, "the Xenopsychology Department has finished their assessment of the human message. They believe this is only the beginning." Kethvar reviewed the report with growing dread. Human military doctrine, as analyzed from historical records, emphasized psychological warfare as much as technological superiority. The destruction of the defense platform wasn't just a demonstration of capability. It was calculated to cause maximum fear while leaving alien governments uncertain about how to respond. "What does the analysis suggest we're dealing with?" he asked quietly. "Best estimates indicate this ship represents a scouting force, or advance warning. Human military philosophy emphasizes overwhelming preparation before major operations. If they're revealing themselves now, it suggests they believe their position is unassailable." The implication sent chills through Kethvar's experienced military mind. If a single human ship could casually destroy their best defenses, what would happen when humanity revealed the full extent of their surviving forces? Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the UES Retribution monitored alien communication networks while maintaining its course toward the heart of Centaurian territory. The ship's advanced sensors tracked fleet movements across multiple star systems, analyzing response patterns that revealed critical information about galactic military capabilities. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the ship's intelligence center, reviewing reports that confirmed what human strategists had predicted during their 50 years of exile. The galaxy had grown soft during humanity's absence, with military forces optimized for peacekeeping rather than serious warfare. "Intelligence summary," she requested from Dr. Morgan, who had been analyzing intercepted alien communications for the past 12 hours, fascinating patterns, Commander. Approximately 60% of alien governments are advocating immediate surrender negotiations. 25% want to attempt diplomatic resolution through territorial concessions. Only 15% are calling for military resistance. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. The psychological impact of their demonstration was proceeding exactly according to plan. By showing overwhelming technological superiority while maintaining non-aggressive positioning, humanity was forcing alien governments to choose between reasonable negotiations and suicidal warfare. What about their fleet positions? They're maintaining defensive postures around population centers. No aggressive deployments detected. Most interesting is that several species have actually begun withdrawing forces from forward positions. The strategic situation was developing exactly as human planners had anticipated. Alien military doctrine emphasized territorial defense and gradual escalation, making them predictable opponents for human strategists who had spent decades studying their weaknesses. "Commander," Lieutenant Park called from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting direct communication with our government." Sarah allowed herself a thin smile. After 6 hours of panic and debate, the aliens were finally ready to acknowledge that humanity couldn't simply be wished away or destroyed. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The main screen displayed the image of Ambassador Yethrin, a tall Andromedian whose purple skin had deepened to nearly black with stress. Behind him, Sarah could see the emergency session of the Galactic Council still in heated debate. "I am Ambassador Yethrin, speaking for the Emergency Assembly of the Galactic Council. We request formal communication with representatives of human government regarding your recent return to galactic space." Sarah studied the alien diplomat, noting the carefully neutral language that avoided any acknowledgement of past crimes against humanity while implying equal standing between species. It was exactly the kind of political maneuvering that had enabled the conspiracy against Earth 50 years ago. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Retribution. I speak with full authority for human interests in this sector. State your position regarding humanity's right to exist in this galaxy." The directness of her response clearly caught the ambassador off guard. Alien diplomatic protocols emphasized elaborate courtesies and indirect communication, while human military culture valued clarity and efficiency above all else. "Commander Chen, the Galactic Council recognizes that circumstances have changed since humanity's departure from known space. We are prepared to discuss territorial arrangements and appropriate guarantees for human security." Sarah felt anger flash through her at the euphemistic language. "Departure, Ambassador. Is that what you call the destruction of our homeworld and the attempted genocide of our species?" The alien diplomat's expression showed obvious discomfort as he tried to navigate between acknowledging past events and avoiding responsibility for them. "Commander, those events occurred under different political conditions. The current council seeks peaceful resolution of all outstanding issues." "Outstanding issues," Sarah repeated, her voice cold enough to freeze helium. "Ambassador, let me clarify humanity's position. We are not refugees seeking charity or permission to exist. We are the survivors of attempted genocide, and we have returned with the power to ensure such betrayal never happens again." In the council chamber, the assembled alien representatives listened to the human commander's words with growing unease. Her tone carried the absolute confidence of someone who knew she held overwhelming advantages and the casual destruction of Platform Sentinel. Seven had proven that her confidence was well-founded. "What are humanity's demands?" Ambassador Yethrin asked, trying to maintain diplomatic composure while sweat beaded on his alien features. "First, formal acknowledgement by all galactic governments of the attempted genocide against humanity 50 years ago. Second, territorial concessions equivalent to what was lost when Earth was destroyed. Third, reparations for 50 years of exile and the deaths of millions of human refugees." The demands sent shockwaves through the council chamber. Several species had built their current territories on systems that had once been claimed by human colonies, while others had profited immensely from the absence of human competition in galactic trade. "Commander," the ambassador said carefully, "these demands would require extensive negotiation and significant political adjustments. Perhaps we could begin with more modest arrangements while building trust between our species." Sarah's expression showed exactly what she thought of alien promises about trust. "Ambassador, 50 years ago, your species promised humanity partnership and mutual cooperation. The result was genocide. We will not make the mistake of trusting alien promises again." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "However, We are prepared to demonstrate good faith. If the Council provides formal acknowledgement of past crimes within 72 hours, we will consider entering into territorial negotiations. If not, we will begin reclaiming human space through more direct methods. The threat was delivered with calm professionalism, but every alien in the chamber understood the implications. If humanity could casually destroy their best defenses from impossible range, they possessed the military capability to enforce any territorial claims they chose to make. 72 hours, Ambassador Yethrin repeated, his voice barely steady. We will convey your position to the full council for consideration. See that you do, Sarah replied before cutting the transmission. In the sudden silence of the council chamber, Admiral Kethvar watched as 47 species tried to process the reality of their situation. Humanity had returned to galactic space with technology that made resistance futile and demands that would reshape the political landscape forever. The Phantom ship continued its course through alien territory, no longer hiding but moving with the patience of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to run. Behind it, the galaxy's leaders faced the most difficult decision in galactic history. Acknowledge their crimes against humanity, or face the consequences of 50 years of human preparation for this moment. The countdown had begun, and in less than 3 days, the galaxy would discover whether humanity's mercy was as advanced as their weapons. The final hours of humanity's deadline ticked away while emergency sessions continued across the galaxy, with governments desperately trying to reach consensus on a response that wouldn't trigger the complete destruction of their civilizations. The Galactic Council chamber had become a pressure cooker of conflicting interests, species loyalties, and barely contained panic as representatives faced the impossible choice between humiliation and annihilation. Admiral Kethvar stood before the assembled delegates, holding a datapad containing the military assessment that had taken his best analysts 3 days to complete. The conclusions were unambiguous and terrifying. Resistance against humanity was not just inadvisable, it was mathematically impossible given current technical disparities. The strategic analysis is complete, he announced to the silent chamber. Our weapons cannot penetrate their stealth technology.
Our shields cannot stop their directed energy systems.
Our fastest ships cannot match their propulsion capabilities. In military terms, we are facing an opponent that exists several generations beyond our current technological level. Ambassador Veltar of the Centaurian Republic rose from his delegation's section, his blue skin pale with the stress of sleepless negotiations. Admiral, surely you're not suggesting we simply capitulate to human demands? Some of their territorial claims would displace billions of our citizens. I'm suggesting, Kethvar replied with the bluntness of a career military officer, that those citizens will be displaced refugees rather than casualties if we choose cooperation over confrontation. The humans have demonstrated remarkable restraint so far. I wouldn't count on that continuing if we reject their ultimatum. From across the chamber, High Counselor Zix of the Mechanical Collective added her mechanical precision to the discussion. Mathematical analysis confirms Admiral Kethvar's assessment. Probability of successful military resistance, less than 0.01%. Probability of species extinction if humans choose total warfare, approaching certainty. The brutal honesty of the military assessment had finally penetrated the political posturing that had dominated the previous debates. Faced with extinction, even the most aggressive alien species found themselves reconsidering their positions on human territorial demands. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Retribution, Commander Sarah Chen reviewed the final preparations for humanity's next move. The 72-hour deadline was approaching, and intelligence intercepts suggested the aliens were still struggling to reach consensus on their response. Status report from all departments, she ordered, walking between stations where her crew monitored every aspect of the developing situation. Intelligence indicates approximately 70% of alien governments now favor acceptance of our demands, reported Dr. Morgan from her analysis station. However, several major powers are still holding out, including the Saurian Remnant and the Vegan Trade Union. Commander Reeves looked up from his tactical displays where he tracked military movements across 3-star systems. Fleet deployments suggest they're preparing for possible conflict, Commander. Several species have moved their most advanced ships into forward positions, though they're maintaining defensive postures. Sarah wasn't surprised by the mixed response. Human strategists had predicted that some species would choose destruction over acknowledging their crimes, driven by pride and the naive belief that their superior numbers could overcome humanity's technological advantages. Engineering, prepare for Phase 2 operations, she ordered. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom with the confidence of someone who had spent 50 years perfecting impossible technologies. All systems ready, Commander? The Phantom Fleet is standing by for materialization on your command. The Phantom Fleet represented humanity's ultimate strategic advantage, developed during the long decades of exile when human survivors had been forced to think beyond conventional military doctrine. Rather than building traditional fleets that required massive resources and infrastructure, human engineers had created something that existed in quantum superposition until needed. "Lieutenant Park, prepare the final communication to alien governments," Sarah ordered. The message that broadcast across galactic space carried the weight of 50 years of preparation and the absolute confidence of a species that had learned to survive anything the universe could inflict on them. "This is Commander Chen of the United Earthship Retribution. Your deadline expires in 1 hour. Species that have formally acknowledged past crimes against humanity and accepted our territorial demands will be considered neutral parties in future operations. Those that have not will be treated as hostile forces." In the council chamber, Ambassador Yethreen watched the vote tallies with growing desperation as species after species chose survival over pride. The mathematical reality of their situation had finally overcome political considerations, but several holdout governments were still refusing to acknowledge human demands. "Final vote," he announced to the chamber. "All in favor of formal acceptance of human territorial claims and acknowledgement of past actions against their species." The vote was closer than military advisors had recommended, but ultimately survival instincts prevailed over wounded pride. 34 species voted for acceptance, while 13 chose defiance, believing their combined fleets could somehow overcome humanity's demonstrated technological superiority. Admiral Kefvar watched the voting results with the sick certainty of someone who understood exactly what would happen next. The species that chose defiance were about to discover why humanity had been feared above all others before their exile, and why 50 years of technological development had made them infinitely more dangerous. "Transmission sent to human vessel," the communications officer reported. Majority acceptance with formal acknowledgement. However, 13 species have rejected the ultimatum and are mobilizing for combat operations. On the Retribution, Sarah received the alien response with grim satisfaction. The galaxy had split exactly as human planners had predicted, with the smart species choosing negotiation while the prideful ones prepared to demonstrate why humanity had been forced into exile in the first place. "Commander Reeves, initiate Phantom Fleet materialization," she ordered. Across a dozen star systems, space itself seemed to convulse as human ships phased into normal reality from quantum superposition. The vessels that appeared bore no resemblance to anything in galactic databases, sleek predators designed for one purpose: eliminating threats to human survival with overwhelming efficiency. The Phantom Fleet consisted of 300 ships that had existed in quantum uncertainty until this moment, maintained in parallel dimensions while their crews lived normal lives aboard colony ships hidden in deep space. Now they materialized as a coordinated force that had been planning this operation for decades. The alien species that had chosen defiance found their space suddenly filled with human warships that their sensors couldn't track and their weapons couldn't target. The brief conflicts that followed were less battles than demonstrations of technological superiority, so overwhelming that resistance became meaningless within hours. The Saurian remnant, proud descendants of the empire that had first challenged humanity 60 years ago, lost their entire battle fleet in 47 minutes without inflicting a single casualty on human forces. Their ships simply stopped functioning as human weapons reached through their shields and shut down their systems at the quantum level. The vegan trade union watched their commercial empire collapse as human ships appeared at every major trade hub simultaneously, enforcing economic blockades that brought interstellar commerce to a complete halt within 6 hours. Other defiant species found their home systems surrounded by phantom ships that offered simple choices: surrender unconditionally or face the systematic dismantling of their civilizations. Faced with technologies that made resistance impossible, even the most aggressive species quickly chose survival. Within 24 hours of the fleet's materialization, every government in the galaxy had formally acknowledged human territorial claims and agreed to reparation negotiations. The species that had celebrated humanity's apparent extinction 50 years ago now competed to demonstrate their eagerness to accommodate human demands. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as alien ambassadors lined up to broadcast formal apologies and territorial concessions. The phantom ships maintained their positions throughout galactic space, silent reminders that humanity's mercy was not weakness but calculated restraint. "Phase 3 complete," she reported to her crew. "Human territorial claims have been acknowledged by all galactic governments. Reparation negotiations will begin within the week. The exile is officially over." Dr. Morgan looked up from her historical records with obvious satisfaction. "Commander, we've achieved everything our planners hoped for 50 years ago. Humanity has not just returned to galactic space. We've established ourselves as the dominant military power. Sarah nodded while studying tactical displays that showed human ships positioned at every strategic location in known space. The galaxy that had tried to destroy humanity was now completely at their mercy, protected only by human restraint and the hope that cooperation would prevent total subjugation. Doctor, our planners understood something that the galaxy forgot during our absence. Humans don't just fight for survival. We fight to ensure that threats to our survival never arise again. The galaxy will be a safer place for humanity because we've made it too dangerous for anyone to threaten us. The Phantom Fleet held its positions while alien governments began the difficult process of adjusting to a new galactic order where humanity's word was law and human interest took precedence over all other considerations. The species that had tried to exterminate humanity 50 years ago were about to learn that their greatest mistake wasn't destroying Earth, it was failing to finish the job completely. The ghosts of humanity had returned from the void, and they had brought with them technologies that would reshape the galaxy according to human designs. The age of alien dominance was over, and the age of human supremacy had begun with the precision and overwhelming force that had always characterized human military operations. In the depths of space, Phantom ships continued their patient watch over a galaxy that would never again forget the price of betraying humanity's trust.